statistical, so unpredictable, here on SNL Stats.
Yes, that is right. SNL Stats is back for another roundtable covering a very special episode, our first in May. It's May Sweeps. It's the final 3 episodes of the season. I'm so excited to talk through it, whether you like this episode or you didn't. I know we're going to have some interesting conversation. Before we get to that show, let me tell you a little bit about what we've done over the last week. Last week, we spoke to Don Roy King. He is the Emmy Award-winning director of Saturday Night Live. He's been there for 15 years. And myself, Rich Tackenberg, and James Stevens had an excellent conversation with Don Roy King, talking about his history with the show, some very funny stories, as well as his opinion on Elon Musk hosting the show. It was really interesting to hear. We also did some coverage of That Damn Michael Che, so a little bonus coverage if you checked out that 6-episode sketch show. That will also be in your feed or on YouTube. Just subscribe to never miss a show. Turning to tonight, I am so excited to break down everything with this panel. Joining us, she is the senior TV editor from Collider, Liz Shannon Miller. Liz, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for asking.
Is everything going well in your life? It's been, we haven't seen you since Trivia when you joined us back in, I guess it was April. How's everything going?
It's good. Keeping up with stuff. Haven't made any bread in a while. That feels different.
Yeah, well, life is weird, I guess, in 2021. But anyways, I'm really happy to have you join us. And you've been such a bright light on all of our roundtables. And I sincerely mean that throughout the entire season. So it's really great to hear from you near the end of the season.
No, I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be on the show. You guys, it's always a fun conversation.
Yeah, so we're going to get right into it. Joining us also, one of our great super fans and a live from New York Reddit moderator, Andrew Haskell. How are you?
Dogecoin didn't go to the moon, John, but SNL Stats is. So it's so great to be here. I've gotten a few really cool episodes this season. Like I was on, Dave Chappelle after the election. Now you got a unique episode like this. Super excited to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. We actually posted our Google search trends on Instagram today, where it showed the people searching Dogecoin during the show went way, way up, I guess, as Dogecoin went down. So that is an interesting wrinkle to this episode. Joining us for the first time, I'm so happy to have this guy on. I've been talking to him all year long as he's preparing a project of his own. Rob Finn from the Saturday Night Project is here to join us. Rob, how are you?
I'm doing great, my friend. I'm doing great. Happy to be here. And great first episode to be on. It's
Tell me about it.
If I had to pick one, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm excited to hear your opinions on everything. Before we get started, can you tell the listeners about your origin story with Saturday Night Live?
So about a year ago, I had been just exchanging texts with my friend and been an SNL fan since I used to watch it with my aunt when I was like 6 years old. So way back, comedy fan, extraordinaire. Friend and I were exchanging texts, and it came up that he listed a bunch of people that he said, weren't these people, didn't they audition for SNL in 2008, but they didn't get on the show? And it was like Donald Glover and a bunch of other people that are now household names. I asked him, is there a list or a place that has every single person who's ever auditioned successfully or unsuccessfully? After some research, there was not. And exactly a year later, the Saturday Night Project is now live. And it's sort of just a hub of all things audition. There's an interview series that I've had recorded with a couple of people who auditioned but didn't join the show. Just getting the background information from them, as well as collecting all of the stories that the people who were on the cast have shared, on late night shows and on podcasts and things like that. So really excited that it's up, and only going to get better from here. So excited for everybody to check it out if you haven't. And that's me.
Yeah, I'm really happy you're on the show, and getting to collaborate with you is really fun. The audition process for Saturday Night Live is something obviously we haven't gotten a chance to explore on this show. So to have you as like an extended arm of the SNL community is really exciting. So Rob, thanks for joining us. I'm excited to get your thoughts on everything coming up. Let's set the table. So if you only check us out for our roundtables, it's been about a month since we've been here. We had our 3 shows last month, and we're back for our final 3. Liz, let me ask you, before we get into anything from this episode, where is your head at about season 46, heading into the final 3 episodes? How are you feeling about the season, and what are you looking for coming down the home stretch?
Really interesting question. I feel like I've been I've been much more mixed on this season than I have in seasons past, even though the season has included a couple of performers who I think did really stand out work. It's really tough for me to say, honestly. I think if I was going to grade it right now, I'd probably give it somewhere in the range of a B to B minus. Like, I think there's been some really standout funny moments, but I think there's also just been a lot of things where I don't know who the audience for this joke is, but it's certainly not me. And as a result, like, I think this year, more than other years, it feels like the show is showing its age. If that feels like it makes any sense. Like, I feel like the era of the show's been through so many different eras, and I think it needs to hit like a new level of innovation. And honestly, it almost seems like we were kind of getting that with the quarantine shows that were being done literally a year ago. They were raw, and they were, at times kind of emotionally uncomfortable for a number of reasons, but they were at least something different. And I think, like, in the rush to go back to normalcy, SNL has just really fallen back into old patterns. And I think it's almost kind of a net loss. Like, I'm glad they're back in the studio. I'm glad they're still making comedy. I'm glad they seem to have found a way to have done it safely. There haven't been any shows canceled because of an outbreak or anything. So that's great news. Knock on wood, that continues. And I mean, that's kind of where I'm landing at this point. Like, I'm excited for the next 2 episodes. I just am not on balance sure how great I found the season to be.
Yeah, and I think that's a sentiment a lot of people are feeling, which is totally fair. It's been a tough season. We learned from Don Roy King last week about all the protocols and everything, and I'm sure, it's hard to say how that affects the quality of the show, but certainly I think that's a very fair sentiment from you, Liz. Haskell, let me ask the question to you. You've been with us throughout the entire year. Where is your head at heading down the home stretch?
Yeah, actually, it's funny enough. We were together, I think, on one of the live post shows back in, the last stretch of episodes. And you asked me a similar question. What do I want to see? And I want to see something that's live, not a pre-tape, that really captivates people. Not necessarily controversy or anything like that. Just something that really catches people. And John, you spoke to this as well, and still kind of waiting for it. This is a season, though. I definitely agree. It's been inconsistent. It at times has been the least I've enjoyed SNL in the last handful of years. But I think it's a season we're not going to be able to judge fully for a long time. It could in years to come be seen as a very, very important kind of transition season. And there's a lot of little nuggets in this season that, if they're allowed to grow, we could look back on and be like, you know what, we weren't appreciating certain things at the time.
I love that you said that, because that's where my head is at too. It was that, this isn't, no one's saying season 46 of Saturday Night Live is the best season ever, but there are little nuggets that I do find here and there that do make me excited about the future. So I'm sure we'll talk about them, whether it's tonight or over the next few weeks. Rob, how have you felt about season 46 compared to other seasons of the show that you have seen? Where's your head at about everything?
Yeah, I think it's definitely true that they're clearly under restraints that they weren't dealing with in past seasons. And even if it isn't something that is things like worrying about COVID, things like having all these protocols. You see the pictures of like the table reads where everybody, of course, is spread out and has the masks. They've never had to deal with that. And I can't imagine that doesn't have some effect on the creative output that's coming from everybody. It's just it would be impossible for there not to be some sort of, alteration that is coming because that's the setup that they're in. So I think in the same way that the seasons that were being run by, not Lorne Michaels, I'm blanking on his name, in the early 80s, someone who was the showrunner. Exactly. In the same way that those seasons kind of had something going on in the background that was affecting the end results. This is a different example of that, but similar in the sense that it's something that's out of their control. And again, like Andrew had said, we'll look back on and be like, well, this is what they put out during coronavirus. But I'm always hopeful. It's an institute. It's a school, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, hearing all of your perspectives and I feel very fortunate to hear lots of different people's perspectives throughout the season. And I think that one of the main things that we're gathering is that season 46 doesn't feel like an ensemble. Like I say that as my French Quebecois accent, but it feels like a lot of, you watch any given episode of the season and you see groups of people create a certain style of sketch, and they don't necessarily always fit into each other. There's no consistent themes. We often see jokes. I mean, this is one of those things that drives me nuts when you see a joke that happens in multiple sketches throughout the evening and there's no running thread throughout them. Like this week example with the cousin checker thing. That was weird. So I start thinking about these things in comparison, where you look at this beautiful start to the episode with Miley, which we're going to talk about, and then it kind of changes in quality of the show with Elon. So anyways, I don't want to get into the episode this second, because for me, the most important thing to do, and where this is a little bit different for our roundtable, is talk about the decision to book Elon Musk in the first place. And this is something that we've had some off-week shows, and I've chosen not to talk about it yet because I wanted to save it for this conversation in particular. So what I will ask, if you are a listener, is give us a chance. You may be on one side. You may say, "Oh, I don't get it. Why are people complaining about Elon Musk? He's this guy who's created a lot of things for our world. He's obviously in the cultural zeitgeist." Or you may absolutely despise the guy and have had no interest in watching this episode, but thank you for checking out our coverage. Just give us a chance. We have 3 people here who have interesting opinions and perspectives. We're going to try and have a great conversation about it. That's all I ask from our listeners. Liz, let me start with you. What did you think when you heard that Elon Musk was booked for the show?
Well, I hope this isn't pulling back the curtain too much, but when you asked me to do this week's episode, you asked me before Elon Musk had been announced, and I don't know if I think my answer to come on tonight might have been different if I had known. Not because I have anything thoroughly against Elon Musk. I just was, I think sometimes the comedy shows are funnier when they're hosted by comedians. This is just me throwing out a wild, crazy notion here. You can be, I have plenty of skills, and I don't think also I can go host Saturday Night Live. So anyways, that's kind of a roundabout way of saying I was not enthused. And not for any reasons connected to, Elon Musk's opinions on various topics, just because I like comedy shows when they're hosted by comedians. I'm very, very judgmental that way. I've been delightfully surprised, by the way, by past SNL hosts who do not come from the world of comedy, who've really stepped up and committed. And we'll talk about that in respect to Elon Musk's performance, but that's kind of where I landed. And I mean, also for the record, in the time between him being announced and the premiere of the episode, I don't think I've heard the name Steve Forbes mentioned so many times online. And I'm just like, no, you can't complain about Elon Musk because they have a history of doing this. Remember Steve Forbes? And I'm like, no one does. There might be a point there. Maybe stop using Steve Forbes as a reason why it's okay for Elon Musk to be hosting SNL.
Okay, that's a good way to start this off. So Haskell, let me send it over to you. What were your thoughts?
I'm going to straighten my tie and give my nice political answer, which is...
Give us the real answer. We want the real answer.
My honest, real answer is actually right in the middle. I don't care, and I don't blame people who are aggravated, especially if you really feel... And I don't disagree with people on certain aspects on Elon Musk. And if you feel that, hey, haven't we learned enough of giving people that we feel are dangerous a platform? And I'm not saying Elon Musk is that person. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying, I can see why people feel that way. On the other side of it, I can see why SNL booked him. And I do like when all eyes turn to SNL. Over the weekend, Saturday, during the day into the evening, I got to see a lot of people that I haven't seen, through COVID and even before COVID, and a lot of friends getting together, and a lot of friends who don't watch SNL, and everybody was saying, what's going to happen tonight? What's going on with SNL tonight? And I do like that. And sometimes it takes them going outside and getting somebody like Elon Musk. The results we're going to talk about, obviously, that'll go somewhere else. But I'm right in the middle. I don't blame you either way, either way or the other.
Can I just please add that, like, exactly what you're saying, Andrew? Like, I think honestly one of my biggest frustrations was just the fact, gosh darn it, Lauren, you know how to do this to us, and it works every time. Why are none of us better than this? And the answer is because, this is who we are.
Yeah, I think I'm with you guys, but I'm going to hold my opinion for a second. Rob, let me ask yours.
Yeah, my gut instinct right away was, what a smart move by Lauren to do this, and just was, I appreciate him and all the things that he's done, obviously, but as just his kind of personality and jokes and being, really into memes and being a CEO, it has always frustrated me. Things changed afterwards, which we'll get to, but my initial instinct was like, this is such a smart move by SNL to do this, and I'm going to watch this and just be arms crossed the entire time, like, I can't believe that they're doing this. It makes sense, and with the legitimizing of people like the former president who had hosted in the past, we see that can be a problem. At the same time, there have been instances of non-comedians who did come on, like Liz had said, who came on and did a terrific job. So there was the opportunity there. My initial instinct was just, regardless of any of the political nature of it, I just thought he just won't be good at it. And it's just not worth bringing a host in who's going to make a show that isn't funny. It's just, that's all there is to it, regardless of what you think about him. That was my opinion kind of before the episode, and what I was coming into it when I was watching. So, but obviously we'll talk about how it actually ended up.
Yeah, I do want to ask the panel, because there are some similarities in all of your opinions. Do you all feel, and I'll raise your hand, I guess, or tell me if you want to chime in. Do you all feel that it is worth it for SNL to get the attention, even if they're going to have a lower quality episode? Like, is that exchange worth it? The bonus in views, even though this is one of, 900 and something episodes that may not be up to par with an average episode?
That is such a good question. I think, honestly, not to jump in and
please do.
Yeah. But I think the question is, if the goal is strictly ratings, then, is SNL struggling? Like, is SNL on the verge of getting canceled? Is SNL Veronica Mars putting Paris Hilton into an episode just to make the WB happy? I don't think any of those things are true. I think SNL's doing okay. Like, I get the idea of striving for creative relevance and wanting to get that attention. And, I guess from some perspectives, the show did need that. But, we also like really good comedy sketches. Like, I think the sketch that's come up the most for me, in terms of just talking about the season, was the Zillow pre-tape sketch, because it was a really funny sketch that really captured something that was going on with people. Like, and as a result, like, that's one of the best things from SNL I'm going to remember from this season. I'm not going to remember much from this.
Right. Yeah. Haskell, go ahead.
Yeah. So first thing, like, I would say, to your question, like, SNL is one of the few things on network TV that actually still works. But, to answer your question, John, I do think there is value in these kind of big sort of marquee episodes, even if they're not going to be as good. But there's a threshold, to get the eyes there, and people can see, like, okay, this is what SNL is right now, and this wasn't the best episode, but that person was funny, and I could actually see myself watching that. That's fine. If you come in and you do this marquee episode and people are coming out of it saying, like, oh boy, what was that? Then it probably isn't worth it.
Yeah. Rob, I'll come to you in a second, but you guys are kind of like, things are like synapses are firing off in my brain as you guys are talking because I'm thinking about this. And for me, like if I think about the history of the show, obviously we go back a few years to that 40th anniversary where there's this giant celebration of Saturday Night Live. All these former cast members and hosts are coming in and everyone's celebrating Lorne. He's front and center with everyone behind him at the closing. And, you know, there's this moment of like, wow, I can't believe that this is what we've created over 40 years. And I think it kind of all came together in 2016 with season 42, where they had this, you know, really high quality episodes, and then they're bringing in the beginning of Alec Baldwin to play Trump, and it's really, they're getting media attention that they haven't gotten in 20 years. And I think that as the, you know, the Alec Baldwin Trump thing kept going on and the quality kept getting worse, I always feel that over the last few years they're chasing what they had in season 42. And what happened is that post-Trump, going into the Biden era in 2021, the quality of Saturday Night Live, in my opinion, got better. But the attention on the show went down. And I almost feel like this episode and the choice to book Elon Musk was like a reverse to what happened in 2021, which was like, let's just chase that attention one last time and see if we could find the magic. And I'm not sure that they did. I almost felt like this was what we've seen in 2017, 2018, 2019, when they're bringing in the Ben Stillers and the Robert De Niros and all that stuff. Rob, sorry for the soliloquy, but I just wanted to, you know, get that out. Go ahead.
I agree with it. In terms of, is it worth the trade-off of the quality of the episodes versus the political, or not even political, but just general attention that the show receives? As a fan, no. From a business perspective, absolutely. It is. I spoke with people just, you know, this past weekend. I think Liz had said something similar, or maybe Andrew. Everybody that I knew was talking about the show in some capacity. People were posting about it on my LinkedIn. It was just very much part of the cultural conversation compared to really any week. So part of me was like, it's attention and it's going to be extra people watching the show. And I saw an article that said that the viewership had risen for this past episode compared to ones past. So as a pure business decision, yes. But then as a fan, I'm like, I want, like Liz had said, I want people who are funny, who are going to make this comedy show comedic. So both sides of the coin there. It's tough to. If I were Lorne, I might have done the same thing. But then the hardcore fan of me is just like, it's all about the laughs, Lorne. You're losing sight of that.
Yeah. And look, let me just double down on that because, you know, our regular listeners know that I'm up in Montreal. So we're in a different country over here. And in our Montreal Gazette, our newspaper, like my parents are saying, did you see that there's an article here about Elon Musk on Saturday Night Live? Like that doesn't happen here. Like people know about the show and obviously it has a ton of Canadian connections, but just the attention around this was really fascinating. And then, you know, I haven't got a chance to give my opinion on it, but obviously when I heard the news, my first thought was, this is really interesting. Like, I understand that we don't want to give a platform to somebody who may be dangerous. And I'm not saying that Elon Musk is Donald Trump. So I certainly get where people are coming from. I see both sides, like a lot of our panelists tonight. But I think for me, ultimately, I don't look at Saturday Night Live, and this is part of the reason I created this podcast, is I don't look at Saturday Night Live as a micro moment in time. I look at it as a macro moment in time. I start to think in 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years, what are we going to look back at 2021? And I do think that Elon Musk hosting Saturday Night Live, whether you like it or not, is interesting. And it will probably be, you know, this season will partially be remembered for him hosting the show. So to me, I find that stuff fascinating, whether you agree or disagree with it. And I think if you have decided to listen to a podcast about Elon Musk on Saturday Night Live, you probably find it interesting too. So thank you to the panelists for sharing. Do any of you guys have anything else about that before we get into the episode?
Yeah, I think you just made a really good point. Yeah, well, I just wanted to say you made a really good point about how you know, it's really about what the goal is, and I think that becomes the really interesting question as you really dig into it.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about the episode, what we saw on Saturday night. So this was really interesting for me. The show, you know, we got some information. We found out that Miley Cyrus was going to be, you know, leading our cold open. Basically, you know, a little bit of a co-host for the evening was expected, that she was there. And this was amazing. for me. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but I felt, she's singing Light of a Clear Blue Morning, the Dolly Parton song, which I believe Dolly is her godmother. And the show opens, and it's a different opening from what we've seen. Obviously, we've seen Mother's Day openings in season 40. We saw we saw the monologue in season 40 with Reese Witherspoon, the monologue in season 41 with Brie Larson, and the cold open in season 43 with Amy Schumer. But it has been a few years since we've seen something like this. And Miley opening up the show singing this, for me, I was a little bit emotional seeing this just based on everything that's happened over the last year. It really felt to me like Saturday Night Live was making a statement like, we're back a little bit, just a little bit. That things are getting back to normal, that we can have all the mothers in the building. It really felt nice. So all the Elon Musk stuff aside, I really felt like this opening felt like its own episode almost. Liz, what were your thoughts on it?
I mean, I think you just put it beautifully. And honestly, I'm a little teary because, this was the first Mother's Day I was able to celebrate with my mom in a couple of years. And, it was, so rewatching the episode this afternoon in preparation to talk to you guys about it, like I got teary rewatching the cold open. And yeah, I think, you gotta love the moms. The moms do a great job of doing their best to look like they've been reading off cue cards at least a little bit before. And yeah, I thought it was aside from the part where that sketch, the cold open was so long and such a brutal reminder of how many cast members there are, I thought it was a really great tribute to moms and a really great tribute to the cast. And yeah, I thought and Miley Cyrus sang her heart out. It was great.
Absolutely. Haskell, I mean, I remember last Mother's Day, and I was able to, have a meal with, fortunately, I was able to see my parents and my sister, but I just remember not being able to see my grandmother and just the emotion of this scary, scary time where you were last year, where nobody really knew what was happening. Like, you didn't know when the end of this thing would be. And it was just nice to see this on the show, giving us something really emotional to start the evening. Are you with me on that?
It was sort of cathartic. It was, like I said, just a personal anecdote. Like I was at an event with some close friends, including my mom was there, and we were, able to hug and hang out for the first time in a long, long time. And then to go see this cold open, and the moment that really, really sticks with me, it was, there was a little bit of a wraparound, but you had the Heidi Gardner bit where she didn't have a joke. And then they go to, a bit later, they go to Cecily Strong. And that line where Cecily says she can't deliver the punchline because she's just so happy, that is like better than any sort of forced emotion that SNL has tried in these moments where they try, like just that little line was more emotion than I've gotten out of SNL in a long time. And then you follow it up with Heidi. That sort of moment was kind of the highlight of the night for me, where she comes in and wants the punchline coming off of that really great Cecily moment. So yeah, cathartic. It was a great, great moment. Might end up being the highlight of the season for me.
Yeah. Rob, jump in here.
So I know I said it already that it was such a complete 180 from the perspective that I went into the show with. Like I said, we're going to be sitting there judging it harshly, just like, oh, can't believe you're hosting. And then they have this unbelievably sweet, lengthy, surprising opening moment with all of the mothers. It took me totally by surprise. And John, you might know better than I would, but I don't remember a time, just the fact that Miley was opening the show. I don't remember any other instances of a musical guest being the cold open. I don't know if there's other times where that has happened or not, but so that alone, I was like, this is unique. And then it was just so unbelievably sweet, both the opening as well as Elon having his mom on during the monologue. I felt like the Grinch whose heart grew 3 sizes that day, where I went in just kind of ready to can't believe he's hosting. And then it was just so unbelievably sweet. And I'm sure all the moms themselves will remember being able to be part of the cold open for forever. My mom will probably watch this. Hi, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, that's very nice. to answer your question, Rob, this does not happen in modern SNL very often. But back in the day, like if you watch the second episode of Saturday Night Live ever, we have Paul Simon opening up our show because that was more of a musical episode of the show. And they have had, certain guests they do special things with. I go back to, sometimes at the end, instead of doing the goodnights, the musical guests will perform when they did that with U2 back in the day. And, just Miley has really, in my opinion, established herself as a modern musical marvel of the show, that she is like representative of these modern times where, I wrote down a list for you guys, for all of our listeners who are longtime SNL fans. I mean, I go back to Paul Simon, Prince, Elvis Costello, Linda Ronstadt, Paul McCartney, Dave Grohl, Randy Newman, James Taylor. Like those are the people who Lorne considered the all-time musical guests in the history of the show. They would be invited back for anniversary shows, and they would appear with multiple bands and different arrangements. And to see Miley, open up the show and the trust that the show gives her, to me, is really special that we have that in a modern, younger person, because it shows me that the show is in good hands for these important moments. I don't know, like God forbid there's ever a historical event to the point of a 9/11 where Paul Simon comes in and I think he did the boxer, or COVID, and now Miley with Light of a Clear Blue Morning. To the fact that we have modern musicians that are able to do something like this, I think is really important for Saturday Night Live. Anyone else want to touch on the Miley opening before we move into the show?
Just say Miley did perform at SNL 40, right? So I think so their like trust in her goes back a little bit too, for
Yeah, absolutely. It's just nice to see that obviously continue on into now. So that's really great. So yeah, that to me really felt like its own show. That's what I was saying. It was just so weird to watch this. And then all of a sudden, we go through the montage and then, ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk. And it was just weird that he, to see him, he comes out looking a little bit like a Bond or an Austin Powers villain, walks out in front of everybody. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen, but I want to hear what the panelists thought. What did you guys think of Elon Musk on the show this past week before we get into those sketches? Liz, I'll start with you.
As I mentioned, I feel like I have a certain number of skills. One of them is probably not hosting SNL, and therefore I don't ever think I should do it. I don't know. I don't really want to talk about him as performer,
okay.
To be honest. Like no. Because he's not a trained comedian. Like that's just the innate nature of what we're dealing with here. I think with Elon Musk on the show, for me, the thing that I really struggled with wasn't necessarily the fact that Elon Musk was on the show. It was the way that the show was catering to Elon Musk. And it was in a lot of like, he thinks this will be fun, where he clearly showed up game to play. He put on the wigs, he did the voices, he did the voices so much as a Wario impression can count as a voice, but he committed and he did really work hard on everything. You could see the work, which again, reasons why trained comedians are better at hosting SNL than non-trained comedians. But beyond seeing the work, I think like the thing that really sticks with me is how much of it was just really geared towards let's make Elon happy and let's give him so many sketches and so many bits that are about his mythology, aspects of which a lot of people didn't even know about. Like, and as I forget if this was pre-show or during or pre the show, but we talked a bit about the fact people were searching for Dogecoin even as Dogecoin dropped in the markets, and like these are like Elon as a performer was fine. I just found the way that the show warped around him off-putting, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, Haskell, I mean, I saw in advance of the show so many people saying, hey, this is going to be another like almost like Dave Chappelle situation where he's just going to be there for namesake, but he's not necessarily going to be in many things. The guy was in 9 sketches. So like he was dominating the evening. What did you think of it?
So to start with the monologue, one thing that really hit me early on was, this guy who, I've heard him do interviews and I've seen him do, different speeches as it relates to his businesses. And we've seen him on the Joe Rogan podcast. The number one thing that really stuck out to me early on was how little he commanded the room. And say what you want about Donald Trump coming on to host, he commanded the room. I mean, it's, whatever you want to feel about Donald Trump, it's Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Like, he commands most rooms he's in. And, obviously comedians know how to do that. And actors to a degree know how to do that. And even athletes know how to do it. Because they're used to press conferences and stuff. Right off the bat, I was kind of taken aback, like this. I was like, this is your God? This is the guy. This is the guy we're putting up on the mantle. Like, he was like very subdued, And I think it kind of continued through the night, and some of it was hidden behind some accents and some costumes. But, right off the bat, talking about whether you like the decision or you don't like the decision, I was just like, this is kind of, he's a little flat.
Yeah, Rob, go ahead.
I was very, you mentioned that, I watched his Joe Rogan podcast, and that's actually whenever that was, a couple of years ago, but that was probably the first time where I was like, what's this guy doing? Like, come on. He's talking about how he never leaves the factory and he's so busy and that's why his employees have to work all these hours. But then he's on Joe Rogan smoking weed. So at the time I was like, all right, whatever about this guy. But after watch that, I guess I just had this perspective of him as kind of like larger than life and just a very large presence. And then he comes out in the way that he talks. And I know, talked about his background and his history and everything. It was so not what I expected. I don't know even necessarily what I expected, but it wasn't that. And the whole time that he was performing on the different sketches and everything, they did 100% cater to him and make it so it felt very like, all right, let's let Elon have his fun. Let's let him, be in this sketch and put on a silly costume. It was just like, we're doing it, to, I don't know. It felt like a very, like, camp counselors helping out the campers is the feeling that I got from it. I don't really know why, but yeah, certainly was not a, what I expected it to be, and not the powerful force that in my head I'd built him up to be.
Well, I think what you just said speaks really clearly to the fact that there were he was a kind of decision thrust upon the show. It feels like he was a decision thrust upon the show, and there were some people who we saw on social media actively speak out against it before it actually aired. And but I feel again, the people who stuck around, like, they seem like, okay, well, somebody above us says we have to do this. Let's make it the best show we can.
Right. It's from that business. Real quick. In the same way that I feel as a fan, absolutely never trade off the quality of the show for the person whose name is in lights currently. From like an executive decision standpoint, it's something that, why would you pass that up if to get the ratings to go up? If I'm someone above, whether Lauren or somebody higher up at NBC, would be like, we don't care if the cast is upset or the fans are against it. This is going to bring eyeballs onto this show, and that's our job. So I think that was pretty clear in the way that everything was run.
Rob, I think your camp counselor and camper analogy is pretty apt, in my opinion. I did feel that when I was watching some of these sketches that it almost felt like some people were doing him a favor to put him in them. And I think that, that's probably what it is. But but let's talk about the episode. Let's talk about the sketches that we want to talk about. Liz, I'll start with you. Is there any particular sketch from the evening that you want to bring up for us to get into?
That's a really good question. It's literally like, to get into, in terms of curating, at one of my jobs is one of the reasons why I watch the show every week and usually as close to airtime as possible, if not live, is that Sunday morning I wake up and one of the things I like to make sure I can do is help out the weekend editor at our site by picking out like some sketches that we are worth covering. And, you know, because we find that, you know, just like quick, like, hey, here's a funny sketch from SNL. It's an easy post to write, and people like it because they get to check out the show, even if they didn't watch it that night or the night before. And I thought the Mayor of Easttown parody, you know, while very much in line with other parodies of that type they've done, was very fun. And it was great to see Kate McKinnon. Kate McKinnon, I thought, had a great episode overall, but, you know, it was great to see her kind of really lean into the accent work there. Everyone actually got to lean into the accent work there. And however you feel about Mayor of Easttown, that has been a really interesting aspect of the show to track in terms of how people react to it. So yeah, I thought that was also a really well filmed sketch. Like that was one that did a really detailed job of kind of trying to, maybe not like, you know, a perfect cinematic recreation of the show, but it looked enough like an HBO prestige drama to pass muster. And, you know, I always respect that level of commitment.
Haskell, what do you think of this? This was the new detective show pre-tape.
You know, it's up there in the episode for me, but it's kind of a little bit of a microcosm of the episode for me, which is like, it just seemed a little stretched out. It seemed like they didn't necessarily have everything there. I don't think that sketch hits the, you know, heights of, you know, it's not to go too far outside of SNL, but the Boston accent from Seth Meyers, from, you know, on SNL, Don't You Go Around Rero, you know, even, you know, the rural juror on 30 Rock, like, you know, I think, you know, there are eras of SNL that do the accent thing really well. And, you know, in the regional thing really well. That episode, you know, it definitely had its highlights, but it never kicked into the next gear for me. If you're gonna hold my feet to the fire and say, you know, you have to say one really nice thing about that sketch, probably the best use of Elon Musk in the episode. Like that was one of the, like that moment for him was the one moment that got an audible, loud laughter out of me. So at least it had that going for it, in my opinion.
Interesting. I have another moment, but I'll see if it comes up after. Rob, what did you think about this new detective show?
I can't believe you brought up the rural juror from 30 Rock. That is immediately what my head went to. It was like murder juror. I was like, oh, it's like the rural juror on 30 Rock. Good. I'm glad I wasn't alone in that. Yeah, I always like the pre-tape sketches like that. I always enjoy. I haven't seen what is it? The Mayors of Easttown? Is that's the HBO show?
Mayor of Easttown.
Mayor of Easttown.
Her name is Maya. She's Maya from Easttown.
Okay, good. Well, I'll watch that.
I'm not doing a job of that. I'm not going to do it.
That's all right. So I didn't have that to compare to. Usually, most of the time when they do some sort of sketch like that, it's a show that I've seen because I watch far too much TV. But yeah, very good. It was a good use of Elon, and it also they mentioned It's Always Sunny in the sketch too. I know that they play around with like the Philly, Pennsylvania accent sometimes, it's a very kind of obscure one that clearly they were able to build an entire sketch just around the accent, basically. But yeah, it was enjoyable. Yeah, gotta love Beck Bennett screaming "murder, dirter," you know, at the top of his lungs in the middle of a field. That I never won't enjoy that.
I love the photos of Tina Fey and Questlove on the board when they were going through everything. That to me gave me a great laugh. Haskell, do you have a sketch that you would like to talk about?
You know, I in terms of, all right, let me go back, you know, just for the sake of movement, you know, through something. I talked about Seth Meyers, the Uli show. Somebody, you cannot convince me. Somebody did not run that sketch, at least the rough draft, up to the late night offices for Seth Meyers to look at, because that had Seth Meyers SNL era written all over it. Like I could have sworn like Kristen Wiig or Andy Samberg or Taron Killam were going to show up. Like I just thought that. In terms of a character that they're building for Chloe Fineman, I don't know. It didn't do that much, but I mean, in terms of, you know, Accent Night Live that we just did and all the accents they were trying to squeeze in, this was the one that did, you know, I think they squeezed the most humor out of funny voices.
I'm stunned with that take because I love that's my favorite era, but I didn't see that. But I guess now that I'm thinking about it, I guess I could see Andy and Kristen in that. It's really incredible, Haskell. I didn't think about that at all.
Just the kind of the talk show, taking someone weird and putting them in the talk show and throwing the accents on top of it just seems like that era.
I see the comparison to What Up With That, maybe a little. Or just kind of like that unmanaged chaos, which I enjoy. Well,
my first thought was Sprockets, This Is Not. Like, that's what I was thinking. Because to me, this, we're all talking about different times or different sketches of the show, but I just felt like this was like a take on, like a weird bizarro world Sprockets, where you see like Mike Myers all of a sudden coming in with a pet monkey. That's what I was waiting for. Liz, did you want to say anything else about this sketch?
I do. I have one other comment to make on this sketch, which is, we're not allowed to swear, right?
I mean, go for it. I'll cut it out if I need to.
I mean, what the hell did Frances McDormand do to these people? Like, what? Like, did she, like, step on Michael Che's foot in an elevator once and didn't apologize? He's like, well, screw that bitch forever. Like, I was shocked. It's just like, I know it's Kate McKinnon. Kate McKinnon has done that impression before. She does it very well. But, God, what did she ever do to those people? Why do they hate her so much? I feel so bad for her. Like, she's not an unfunny person. She's been very funny in a lot of stuff. Like, yeah, she's kind of gotten a little serious when she made that movie about sexual assault and won an Oscar. But this is my rant. I conclude my rant. I'm just saying, I think Frances McDormand seems like a decent human being, and I do not know what she did to piss SNL off.
Yeah, and a lot of people actually want Frances McDormand to host the show. Sorry, Haskell, what were you going to say?
Can I jump on like what is this when it comes to SNL thing? Is like, SNL loves Bjork. Like, I have seen Bjork mentioned more on SNL since I entered middle school than I have seen her mentioned anywhere else in the world.
At least Melissa North does a very good Bjork.
Yeah, she does. And we were just missing Keenan's Charles Barkley to come in and have a dinner conversation with Bjork. That's what we were missing. Rob, what was your opinion about this Uli show?
The sketch that it reminded me of, and I'm not going to be able to remember the name of it. I want to say it was like early 2000s. I think Fred Armisen and a girl brings her boyfriend home and meets her like crazy parents that have this accent, and they have
Noonie.
Yes, and he keeps trying to pronounce the name Jeff and saying like Ralph, and it's just completely saying it wrong. Immediately thought of that. But yes, Noonie. So I enjoyed that, and this was kind of a fun take on it. And the crazy talk shows are always good, whether it's Chloe as Uli or Brittany or whoever it might be. She's good at, managed chaos was a good way to describe it.
Yeah, I was like one of those weird ones that always like that Noonie thing where they always had the weird like chairs full of hair or whatever it was. Anyways, not to get too off track. Rob, tell me a sketch that you would like to talk about.
The Wario Mario Luigi sketch. It's that in the sense of the camp counselor analogy. I feel like the way that it came together, and this is complete conjecture, but I feel like Elon said to the cast of the writers, just like, I like Wario and Mario, and that's kind of like a memeable thing. Let's do something with that. And I feel like that was what the inception of it came from. Of course, I have no evidence to back that up. That's just the sense that I got from watching it. But that one in particular, it felt to me as though it was like, Elon said, I'd like to dress up as a goofy video game character. Can we somehow make that a sketch?
Yeah, guys, I don't know about you, but I really like this sketch. I really thought it was funny. And like, I don't know, the whole like lace Luigi's looking to lace some pipe and then the Luigi growing noise thing. I don't know, that got me a little bit. And it wasn't Elon Musk or Grimes or any of the people. It was really the cast that I thought made this. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
No, that it's to your point. The funniest part about that was anything where Elon was not involved, where it was Mikey Day, as the lawyer with the screen up. So they certainly squeezed some very, very funny moments out of it. But just the overwhelming sense that I had from that start to finish was, I feel like Elon said, video games and I want to dress like a character, sketch.
Yeah. Liz, what do you think of this one?
Two things. I really appreciated the fact that it had a really good, not twist is a overuse of the word twist, but it had a good final button with the reveal that it was an ad. Sorry, I'm looking at my phone because the thing that it reminded me of was this one Twitter bit that was quickly killed by Twitter for breaking Twitter rules, which was Italian Elon Musk. I've pulled up the tweet that goes shown like somebody just changed this display name to Italian Elon Musk and went, I send the calzone into space. I don't pay the taxes. Oh, this is my best. That was my best Italian Elon Musk impression. I apologize.
That was great.
But yeah, so that guy got not kicked off Twitter. I think he lost his verified check mark for tweeting that under the name Italian Elon Musk. But that's all I thought about really during the sketch. And I thought it was good. I think Mikey Day, I thought, actually really carried that sketch in a way that impressed me. I thought like he's unexpectedly really the engine keeping the momentum going. It moved really fast as a result. And I thought he just really brought great straight man energy to it. That is the sort of thing that, I only really appreciated properly in second viewing, but I thought that came out really strongly.
Yeah, I was going to say, but he's Japanese. Yeah. Haskell, what did you think of this one?
First things first, if you told me Elon Musk in that Wario outfit was Daryl Hammond, I'm probably believing it. Like, if you go back and look at that picture, like, he has a strong Daryl Hammond thing going on. As for the sketch, it was so damn silly. It is the number one thing that really worked for me, outside of obviously the cold open and all that sort of stuff. It was the number one thing that really worked for me because it was so silly. I pull up right now and I'm looking on my phone. It's one of the pictures that's been going around, and it's Elon Musk as Wario sitting in in the courtroom next to his lawyer, who's just, dressed like a lawyer. And those are the sort of images that I love from SNL. It's so cartoon in real life, sort of wacky. It's one of those sketches that, it has to happen organically for it to work, but they kind of halfway through realized how much of a mess it was. And the giggles kick in a little bit. Cecily, you could tell she was getting a kick out of using the gavel and, getting the noise and all that sort of stuff. So it was just so silly. And if there's one redeeming quality for this episode for me, it was, even when the quality wasn't necessarily there, it was a very silly episode. And, it really played in on this sketch.
That's a good point.
And to that, totally agree with the point. Because of the silliness, I think added to my perspective of let's let Elon have fun. It was just like, all right, this is gonna be the next thing we do, and now he's gonna have on this blonde wig, and now he's gonna be in the Wario costume, which I'm not even saying is a bad thing. It's if they tried to do any higher comedy type stuff, it might not have worked at all. But that contributed to the perspective of, all right, let's show him a good time. Let's show Mr. Musk how to have fun with the cast.
Was it me, or was it, I feel like there was one sketch I watched where it just felt like there was clearly somebody about to break entirely, and I think it might have been the Wario sketch where I think Elon just seemed really on the verge of losing it entirely. But I could not. I'm wondering. My memory could be wrong, so I'm curious if you guys had. Was there any moment from the show in general where you had that memory?
I think that was probably, if I had to guess, in the last sketch of the night, the cowboy standoff, because there was one point in that sketch where there was a very weird noise, and then I think some of the blood from Kyle's chest got onto Cecily's arm, and I think that I think people thought like Cecily hurt herself during the sketch, so I think there was something there with that. Does anyone else have anything on this Wario sketch, or should I give you guys my sketch that I want to talk about? Okay, so let me do it. So I don't know about you guys, but I really felt like the quality of the show improved after updates. I do not understand the order of the sketches this night, but wow, did I love Chad? And I'm sorry, I know that we have friends on other podcasts, John Trumbull specifically. I'm really sorry if you're listening to this because I know how much you dislike Chad, but I thought, Rob, before you mentioned, you're like, hey, I didn't feel like Elon Musk brought a presence to anything tonight. And Haskell, you were like, oh, I think that in this murder thing, I think Elon, that was his best moment. To me, Elon's role was perfect for this. And it was perfect because he was the serious, head of the organization. And Chad was just the complete opposite, most ridiculous that he could be. And I'm not like the biggest Chad fan in the world, but something about the casting in this particular sketch to me was so on point with Miley playing off of Chad. You're going to be a father, Chad. No, thank you. And for me, the greatest thing of all, and look, I know that this is for me like living in the shadow of its predecessor, but the fact that Chad had a farewell Mr. Bunting type ending was so great, because to me, Farewell Mr. Bunting is like my favorite sketch in the last 5 years easily. And I just think the whole thing of like him lifting it off. Anyways, let me hear your opinions on this sketch, because I thought that this could be the best Chad that we've seen, and I thought this was my sketch of the night. Liz, what'd you think of it?
I agree with you that I think it was maybe the best use of Elon Musk, if only because it's a role he's played before. He's been in a, mission control. He's had the headset on. He's tried to communicate with the people in the thing, the space thing. That's what they call it. I thought he felt the most natural and the most confident there. And also, yeah, Chad, it's one joke, but it gets me every time. And I think the no thank you on "you're going to be a father" was in fact probably the line delivery of the night. It was. I did not hate that sketch, even though it was yet another advertisement for Elon Musk is the best, and we should all buy his products and support his mission in space.
For sure. Haskell, I mean, like, even the whole thing where he's like, oh, like, you don't want to like do it one last time, and then his like jumpsuit just like flies off. Like I actually know people who are like that. So it was just so funny for me. Haskell, what'd you think of this?
Yeah, I think is this the second time we saw Chad die this season? He died in the Adele episode too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So like
he dies a lot.
You know what? Kind of a nice little twist they're adding to the character. Like, you add a little bit of violence in now, it works for me. I have always been on the pro Chad side of the fence. I enjoy the character. This one works for me. The only time the character hasn't worked is when maybe it has to be on the shorter side of a sketch. It's just the nature of that character. I think this one was perfect timing. I love the grand kind of scale of it, that it was sort of like, we got to put this guy on all the TV screens, and you sort of know where it's going at that point when the entire world's watching. And then of course you add like that ending, that kind of just quick, like kind of you see it for a second coming. And by the time in your head you're going, I know it's going to happen, it happens. And it just kind of knocks you back a little bit. So, it is probably the sketch of the night for me. I typically tend to like not in my head give the recurring sketch where the host isn't too involved the kind of sketch of the night award in my head, just because it sort of doesn't play into the what we're doing here. But if you really made me choose, that's what I found was the funniest of the night.
Yeah, I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, we're talking about the show, so I get totally what you're saying, Haskell. But I do think that, like, bar none, to me, this gave me the biggest laugh of the night. Rob, what'd you think of it?
I would agree. Yeah, I always loved Chad. We'll support it and defend it forever. It's just the one thing that Andrew said that I hadn't even really considered before is that the briefness of the sketch is really important, and it can get a little bit drawn out. This was a perfect example of just enough like quick cuts and quick lines, and Miley, of course, is down to play that role with
I thought you were going to say down
with gusto.
Down to hook up with Chad.
Oh yeah, well apparently in the episode too, but yeah. So I would say this is probably my favorite of the night. It's in Elon playing himself. I think he felt more confident in that situation than he would in the other situations, which is, makes perfect sense. It's like Liz had said, he has been in the control room talking to people up in space. So he was just like, might as well just be another day at work for me. But yeah, love Chad forever.
Y'all should get Chad tattoos. It's the only proper way to commemorate it.
Right there.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine we got all the guys that are on the SNL Stats podcast to all get Chad tattoos. I think we'd have to retire. Look for me, guys, like if the show had started off with Wario and then Chad on Mars, not to say that there wasn't other interesting things, but like I think the quality of the show for me, I would have been like, oh, this is interesting, but I didn't necessarily feel like the first half matched the second half. Before we move on, is there anything else on the rundown that you want to make sure you cover? Liz, I'll start with you.
Well, one thing I want to look at is, Chad on Mars. One other thing about changing up the order, if Chad on Mars and Cowboy Standoff hadn't been basically back to back, that would have, I think, helped kind of spread out the let's talk about Elon Musk, the greatest man in the universe and our once and future king. But I think that would have helped a lot. I think the only other thing I want to come back to is, as you put it, and I wrote this down because I've never heard it referred to as cousin shucking before. But the multiplicity, I nearly tweeted something on the night. You just mentioned it. Like I saw other people talk about it. That leaning on just like one weird joke thing, and it's like, is it like a gag where the writers just try to see how many different times they can slip it in without anyone noticing? That sort of thing. Like I don't know.
But Liz, the same thing happened during the Carey Mulligan episode where there was a grave mentioned in "What's Wrong with This Picture," and then and then also later with the letters from the war letters, and I was like, why don't you guys just connect the thread? And I just don't understand why SNL just doesn't do that sometimes.
Well, I mean, it's a fascinating question. It's like, is it, that's the thing, like my conspiracy theory is that it's on purpose and they're just trying to see how many times, they're just trying to slip in as many of the same references and all the sketches as possible to see, maybe if we look in the background of Mayor of Easttown, there's a cousin shucking sketch, a joke that we missed entirely.
Yeah, or on the big board, there's like two cousins kissing each other.
And we know they're cousins because there's like arrows pointing at them saying cousins.
Yeah, exactly. Right next to Tina Fey and Questlove.
Exactly.
Haskell, what about you? Anything on the rundown that you want to make sure we cover?
Just real quick, that last sketch. That's one that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I don't really care for. I never. Even when it's people that I may care about or may like, that sort of sketch has never gotten to me. Let's take the host and we still know it's them, but they're in some weird time or they're somewhere else. They did it with Bernie Sanders, and they've done it across things where it's like, we're going to use these puns of what's now, and then you add on top of it that it was sort of kind of this, I don't know, pat on the ass to Elon Musk and, hey, he's really good. And, oh, yeah, that stuff that, right, wrong, or indifferent that you didn't like about him, it's water under the bridge. It's Elon Musk. He's hosting SNL. Like, we're having fun. Like, I really wish they didn't end it on that because that left a bad taste in my mouth.
Fair enough. Rob, anything else on the rundown, or do you want to follow that? Whatever you want.
We didn't talk about Gen Z Hospital at all, did we?
Good. Oh, we have to?
What? Yeah, I was going through my head, and I was like, "Oh, wait, I think we touched on this." A 30 Rock reference again, where Steve Buscemi shows up, and he has a shirt on. He's pretending to be 15 years old. It's just Steve Buscemi. He says, "How do you do, fellow kids?" He has a shirt on that says "Music Band" in the style of AC/DC, just trying to look cool. The reason I didn't dislike it, I think as many other people did, is that I thought from watching it, they were aware of how painfully corny it was supposed to be. It was
in my head, and apparently nobody else thinks this, or very few people do. It was like, we're going to use an insane amount of Gen Z language to be like, look, this is the way that Gen Z talks, but it's very tongue in cheek in the sense that it's like, we know that this isn't actually a good representation. We're heightening it and making it silly and crazy. Doesn't mean that it's a great premise for a sketch, but I thought that I got way less of the sense, the overwhelming hatred that I saw about it online. I was like, oh my, it's a comedy show. They're supposed to be doing silly stuff. It's, they weren't saying this is an indictment of Gen Z. I don't know. That was my thought.
I think the problem is that no matter what, I think you're right to like look at it from multiple levels of meaning, but I think the problem is no level of meaning makes it actually funny. Like beyond like the occasional wig choice, and even then it was just like, okay, yeah, I get it. I think I saw somebody on Twitter, and I wish I could remember who, because it was a good remark. Comment. Maybe it was Dan Feinberg at the Hollywood Reporter, but somebody basically said that they were 90% sure that Gen Z Hospital was one of the pitch ideas that Elon Musk came in with, and that they couldn't say no to it. And that would explain, by the way, its placement so early in the episode, because it's a host sketch, and got to keep the host happy.
But I think that sketch works if they lean into it. That's the sketch, not the Wario sketch, that I think needed to break down at the end. Like, if they went through all this ridiculously, and then at the end somebody broke and was like, hey, listen, you might not like this sketch, but it was this or Irony Man. So you guys choose. Like, that would have saved the sketch for me. That would have leaned into what Elon Musk was doing over the week. It would have leaned into, this sketch isn't very good, but we knew it all along.
That wouldn't have just saved the sketch. That would have saved the show, I think. That would have been great.
Yeah, I don't know if he brought that in. I know that was written by Michael Che, which Liz, I'm sure you're happy I could just throw him right under that bus.
I don't have any.
This is a running podcast joke for the year, so it's
yeah,
okay.
No, it's Michael Che's never stepped on my foot in an elevator. I don't feel the need to constantly go on a podcast and slag him. He's fine. We're fine, isn't that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Okay. So that's look, Rob, I'm glad somebody liked it. So that's what's important.
It's not even. I wouldn't categorize it as I liked it, but I watched it and I was like, yeah, big. Not great. And then, I go online like the next morning and someone says, I reactivated my Twitter account just to say that it was the worst sketch of all time, which was hysterical for someone to do that. But I was like, wow, it did not come off to me as this like complete, I don't even know, like timestamp, like, hey, where were you when you heard about the Gen Z sketch that was so unbelievably bad? It didn't come off that way to me. It was more like, no, it wasn't funny. I get some of the things that they were doing, but I don't know. It's the internet told me otherwise.
I'm glad to see my dad's back on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
I will say that in the discussion of sketches that we should cover following the show, that was the first sketch that came up, and I basically kind of said, yeah, I don't feel like we should just cover a sketch to say it was bad. If we cover everything, every move that SNL makes that's bad, we're not going to have time to cover any other show.
Yeah, exactly. Look, there's good, there's bad, and we move on from it. Just going through the rundown. I just want to make a quick mention to this post-quarantine conversation pre-tape, which I did enjoy. I did think it was good. I thought it had some great lines. What I will say is, you guys in the States, all three of our panelists tonight are all Americans. And I believe you guys are ahead of us with regards to your vaccine rollout and things slowly getting back to normal over there. But I'm a little bit of a germaphobe even before this whole pandemic. And to see Beck Bennett wipe his nose and then put his hand in the peanuts, I had like major, like, oh my God, this is going to be my life now. I'm going to go to social things and I'm going to be watching where everybody puts their hands. And it created a lot of panic in my mind. But I enjoyed this. Did anybody else? Did you guys enjoy it as well?
The thing that immediately, when the sketch title popped up, I was like, I hope that they talk about how people keep asking each other what vaccine they got, and then how there's just no nothing to do with that information. Oh, did you get Moderna? Oh, you got Pfizer? Okay. And they did it, within 2 seconds. I was like, yep, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
I get my second dose tomorrow.
Yay!
Oh, congratulations. That's great.
Yeah. I will say, I think probably the moment of that sketch for me that was really beautifully done and it was really subtle and future generations will never understand it was when I forget who it was, said, "Oh, I got up Johnson and Johnson," and the person he's talking to just inches away slightly.
Yeah, that was Chris Red.
Yeah, Chris Red. That's it. Thank you. And I was just like, it was one of those details where it's like, yeah, I mean, look, 80% still pretty good.
That's one of those 2021 jokes that people are going to Google when they rewatch this episode. Like, what? Why did they say that? That's a great point.
It only had 80% accuracy instead of 95, and I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, guys. So that was an interesting discussion of the episode. Not the best episode of the season, but we have a couple more coming up. I'm excited to talk about as well. Before we get to that, let's talk about the cast. Is there anyone in particular on the list of people who are in the cast tonight and their sketches? Anyone that you just want to make a quick mention of, good or bad? Liz, I will start with you.
As always, I remain a Bowen Yang stan. I thought he did some great stuff here. I think what's really happened is that he's just become a part of the main cast. And, if he's not promoted from feature player next season, I'll be deeply disappointed. I'm
pretty sure he will.
That's basically it for me.
Haskell, what about you?
Let me give you another political answer, but it's the honest to God truth. Is what I loved about this episode, and we talked about this on our very successful post show on Clubhouse, where people were just flocking to listen to us. You know what? Nobody really stuck out to me. Kate McKinnon had a really good episode. More Cecily stuck out in my head in this episode than has a lot of this season because she's been gone. But it really felt like a team effort this week. There was nobody felt like they dominated. So when I say, nobody, I say that in the best possible way. I'm just going through the list of sketches and I'm like, oh yeah, so many people got into the Gen Z hospital sketch, and regardless of how you feel about it, and the Wario trial, Mikey Day was phenomenal in that. But did he dominate the rest of the episode? No, other people got up. So I'm going to take this very, very, cop-out answer and say, everybody did good.
When are you running for office? When are you announcing your campaign with all your political answers?
Whenever SNL has the proper cast member to play me.
Okay, got it. Good to know.
Haskell, you're so political that SNL is going to book you as their host.
Oh.
Hey!
The next Elon Musk, ladies and gentlemen.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Okay, Rob, what do you think about anybody on the cast you want to bring up?
Yeah, I just keep forgetting that Chloe Fineman is still a featured player. I know it's not a gigantic difference. It's all dependent on the performer, but it's just she's a cast member to me, and I know it's a distinction that not many outside of the SNL world are worried about or concerned with. But she is leading sketches. She's in a lot of sketches. Her and then Bowen, just like Liz said, is both of them. I think will be promoted next year, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I know we're supposed to pick somebody from the cast, but I really just got to say one last time how impressed I was with Miley Cyrus opening up the show. I know that she was a guest, but really she's part of the SNL family as far as I'm concerned, and has really established herself that way. And I do think as far as a best of season 46 is concerned, I really loved, for cold opens, that Britney Spears, Chloe Fineman one they did on the Reggae Sean episode. I think that was it for me. But if I'm going to pick a cold open from the season that's really going to represent S46, I would definitely choose this one. Just its emotional impact and everything that we discussed. It really, really impressed me. So that's our discussion of the Elon Musk episode. Moving on to next week. something's going to happen on next week's show, and maybe this is just me overhyping it, but that I never thought would happen on Saturday Night Live, which is a Mad TV cast member coming on the show and hosting. People have been talking about it for years. Guys, get Jordan Peele, get Keegan-Michael Key. What about Artie Lang back in the day? People were talking about all different types of former Mad TV cast members. Obviously, we had Jeff Richards and Taron Killam as the two cast members that have been on both Mad TV and Saturday Night Live. But wow, this was so exciting when this was announced. Liz, let me start with you. What did you think about Keegan-Michael Key hosting next week?
It's only recent. It took a while for me to remember the whole Mad TV aspect, because even though I think I tweeted something about this a couple of years ago about how I thought it was a shame that he hadn't been used, but before as a host, and I'm just really psyched. I think he'll be fantastic. I think he knows. I think he's. Key and Peele is such a fascinating show to look back on, because you can see how they were together, a great partnership, but also how their partnership leans so much on their strengths. And Keegan is such a direct contrast to Jordan Peele and so much of his performance, but he is so out there and he's so outgoing. I genuinely don't know what to expect, except that I have high expectations that I should just keep low so that I'm pleasantly surprised.
Haskell, what did you think of this?
Well, you got a Mad TV alum hosting the show, so noted Mad TV fan Shane Gillis will be super excited. As we know, he prefers Mad TV to SNL. Keegan-Michael Key is, he could be right now as under, to people who aren't necessarily huge comedy fans, he might be one of the most underrated comedic actors out there. He can sort of just, he can give you anything. If you go through and you look at everything he's done, any sort of character, he can play the straight man. He can be as weird as can be, as you need him to be. Like this going into, when you list the first time host, returning host, outside of Mulaney and Maya Rudolph, like this might be as high of expectations as I'm going to have for an episode, because I think he's that good. And quickly, you do have to recommend with him coming on. If you have not seen Don't Think Twice, it is a phenomenal movie. It sort of is it's telling the story of somebody trying to make it on to SNL without it actually being SNL, but it's as close, the logo and everything. They call it Weekend Live in the movie. If you've not seen that movie, you got to go watch it this week before watching this episode, because it's phenomenal.
If you've listened to an hour and a half of an SNL podcast and you haven't seen Don't Think Twice, I honestly that shocks me a little bit, but I also hardly second the recommendation. And yeah, he is phenomenal in that film. And yeah, I think it'll be great.
Rob, before I just get to you, I just want to ask you, Haskell, as a super fan who's loved the show for years and years, is it a faux pas if Keegan-Michael Key brings any of his Mad TV characters onto Saturday Night Live next week?
No, I'd embrace it. Chappelle brought Chappelle Show characters over, and I was never the biggest Mad TV fan, but I would embrace it because I think he's that good. I'd love to see it.
Okay, Rob, what about you? What do you think of this?
Yeah, he is, someone described it is the most ready to crush it host that they can think of in recent memory. I think you put him on the cast tomorrow and he would be a star. He's just that funny. Andrew was just going to say the Don't Look Twice thing, where he auditions and you kind of see that whole story play out. There's actually an interview that I had watched of him talking about how he was kind of glad that he never ended up auditioning for SNL. That was an interesting perspective to hear from him. Jordan Peele did audition, but Keegan-Michael Key never did. I can't wait for this. And then I'm really glad you brought up John Mulaney, because that was my mom's 30th birthday gift to me. I wanted it to make an appearance.
Aww.
For the audio listeners, Rob has a John Mulaney
oh yeah, he's hanging in the back. Yeah.
Oh.
There you go.
That's a great bit. Luckily, we have the expert in SNL auditions here. I think if you asked me, I would have just always assumed at some point he had auditioned. So to find out that he never actually auditioned is kind of a cool little interesting tidbit.
Yeah, it's a great interview that I don't know if you post stuff anywhere, but I can.
Yeah, definitely share it on.
Yeah,
share it on your social media so that the listeners can check that out. And I think Jordan Peele actually auditioned. He auditioned to be Obama right before Fred got it. So that was the story there.
Him and Donald Glover were both in the mix.
That they made. I love Fred Armisen, but that was not the correct choice.
Right. Yeah. We did discuss it. We actually, Haskell, I think, were you on that episode for the SNL Time Machine where we spoke about that?
That was my time machine.
Oh,
Look at that,
exactly.
huh? Synergy there, huh?
There you go. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really want to thank the panelists for having this discussion tonight. It's not the easiest thing to do to talk about a controversial host coming on a institution like SNL, but we are a podcast. We are here to cover everything that happens on the show, and I do appreciate all the panelists' perspectives this evening. Liz, let me start with you. It's been so wonderful hearing from you this entire season. I hope to have you back next season and become as part of our regulars that come and join us. Where can people reach out to you?
You can find me on Twitter at Lizlet. That's Lizlet. Thank you for not having any complaints with me giving this cat a little love while I did it. Tank Girl is not on Twitter. She's far smarter than that. And you can find all of my current writings about television on Collider.com.
We are a pro cat podcast, so no problem at all. Haskell, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll be hearing much more from you. Where can people check out everything that you do?
Yes, on Twitter, Andrew E. Haskell, do stand-up, TikToks, all that sort of stuff. If any of our followers, with New York opening back up, I will be performing at St. Mark's Comedy Club on May 29th. So if you are a follower of the podcast, or come on, see me, I'll buy you a drink or something. And as always, use the hashtag #GetSammyOnMacGruber. Our good friend Sammy, the host of the Superfan Takeovers, we got to get him on the MacGruber series. Use hashtag #GetSammyOnMacGruber.
Got it. And Rob, speaking of synergy, I'm so happy to have you on the week that your website finally launches to get all the information about Saturday Night Live auditions. Tell the listeners where they can find that and where they can reach you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. It's I've been bugging John with Twitter DMs and messages and texts for almost 12 months now. And it's been great getting to know you. It's super, super happy that I was finally able to join and that the site is finally up. The site is SaturdayNightProject.com. You can find us on Twitter at Saturday Night HQ. And there's all sorts of other social media accounts that are set up with it. It's a hub for all things SNL audition, people that have been on the cast who have talked about it, people who you may not have known that auditioned that are famous now, as well as people who have auditioned but maybe aren't household names yet, but they could be the very next Jim Carrey. Of course, Jim Carrey auditioned but didn't get on the show. And then you can find me personally at Robert J. Finn. And I'm glad I was finally here. Hope everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, I think Jim Carrey auditioned with Lisa Kudrow, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah.
That's the story. But of course, you're the expert, so I'll leave all the audition stuff to you, Rob. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to our show. To never miss anything we do on SNL Stats, follow us at SNL Stats, Twitter, Instagram, all the social medias. Make sure to subscribe to us on any podcatcher and on YouTube. Once again, just for everything that's been happening lately, we had our interview with Donora King last week. We also had coverage of That Damn Michael Che, and it was a really fun show. If you watched that 6-episode sketch show, it was really fascinating to see his perspective on everything, despite Liz not being interested in it. Anyways, we'll move on. So it was really, really great. We had an amazing podcast. We had one of our listeners, TJ, join us, and TJ, full of energy, full of amazing takes. So I really encourage you to check out that episode. We also have coverage, obviously, this roundtable, a roundtable next week, and a live show. We're going to also do some special bonus coverage. We have Leslie Jones hosting the 2021 MTV TV and Movie Awards. So we're going to have some coverage of that coming out in a few days. So lots of fun things that we're trying out through this May sweeps period. Listeners, let us know what you think about it, because we're going to continue to provide content for you as we move forward. I'd like to thank our panelists, Liz, Haskell, and Rob, for joining us once again. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a pleasant week ahead. We'll see you next time.
But we're here for the numbers as well. So let's get statistical, so unpredictable, here on SNL Stats.